My name is Lisa Brennan. I'm 34 years old, and I'm a registered nurse. At exactly 5:36 in the morning on March 11th, 2024, my doorbell camera caught my parents dumping my 78-year-old grandmother on my front porch like she was furniture they were donating. The temperature was 38 degrees. She was in her nightgown and a thin cardigan. They left 2 suitcases, didn't ring the bell, and drove away within 90 seconds. My mother texted me at 5:52 a.m. "Grandma is at your place. Jeffrey needs his space. We know you'll understand." They didn't know that I keep records on everything. They didn't know that as a nurse, I'm legally mandated to report elder abuse. And they definitely didn't know that I'd been quietly documenting their treatment of her for the past 4 months. What my parents thought was them solving their golden boy's startup stress problem became the biggest mistake of their lives. If you're still watching, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Now let me take you back to the beginning and show you exactly how a family obsessed with looking perfect destroyed themselves with their own cruelty. It starts the morning after they dumped her, 6 hours and 36 minutes after they drove away. My husband, Connor, was shaking my shoulder. His voice was tight. Lisa, wake up. Your phone's been going off." I reached for it through the fog of sleep. 14 missed calls. Unknown number. Then I saw the notification from our Ring doorbell. Motion detected, 5:36 a.m. Connor was already pulling up the app. We watched together. The silver Honda CR-V, my parents' car, pulled into our driveway. My father, Gerald, got out first, opened the passenger door, helped my grandmother, Eleanor, out. She moved slowly, unsteady on her feet. He set down 2 suitcases on the porch, one floral, one brown. Grandma stood there, clutching her purse, looking confused. Then Dad got back in the car. Mom didn't even turn around from the driver's seat. Total time from arrival to departure, 1 minute and 28 seconds. Connor stared at the screen. "Lisa, is that your grandmother? In 38-degree weather? What the actual—" I was already moving. Threw off the blankets, grabbed my robe, ran downstairs. It was 6:12 a.m. now. I opened the front door. Grandma was sitting on the porch step, shivering, still in her thin nightgown and cardigan. She looked up at me with eyes that were trying so hard not to cry. "I'm sorry to be a bother, sweetheart." That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was abandonment. And worse, she'd been conditioned to apologize for it. Connor came up behind me with a blanket. We brought her inside. I switched into nurse mode immediately because that's what you do when someone you love is in crisis. You compartmentalize, you assess, you act. Vital signs first. Blood pressure, 156/92, high but not immediately dangerous. Pulse, 88, slightly elevated. Temperature, 96.1 degrees Fahrenheit. Hypothermic. Not severe, but she'd been out there in the cold long enough for her core temp to drop. I checked her hands. The Parkinson's tremor was worse than I remembered from Thanksgiving, 8 weeks ago. I asked her basic orientation questions. She knew who I was, knew she was at my house, but when I asked what day it was, she hesitated. "Is it Sunday?" It was Monday. I opened the suitcases while Connor made tea. Clothes had been thrown in randomly, no folding, no care. At the bottom of the floral case, I found her medications in a Ziploc bag. Not in their proper bottles. Just loose pills with handwritten labels in my mother's writing. The labels were wrong. I'm a registered nurse. I know medications. Grandma's metformin for diabetes should be 500 milligrams twice daily. The pills in the bag were marked 250 milligrams, half the dose she needed. That's when I found the piece of paper folded at the bottom of the suitcase, a list in Mom's handwriting. Things Eleanor costs us monthly. Medications, $120, food. Estimate, $200 utilities, her share, $180. Inconvenience, priceless. At the bottom, she'd written the total, $1,450. She'd calculated the cost of caring for her own mother-in-law like a budget line item. Connor saw my face. "What is it?" I showed him. His jaw clenched. "I'm driving over there right now." "No." I kept my voice level. "We document first. Then we act." I walked to my laptop, saved the doorbell footage to 3 different cloud backups, emailed a copy to myself with the timestamp 6:45 a.m., March 11th, 2024. Screenshot my mother's text message. Started a new notebook. Medical assessment log. Eleanor Brennan. Connor photographed everything. The suitcases, the medication bags. Grandma wrapped in our blanket, still shivering even though our house was 71 degrees. My phone buzzed. Mom calling. I let it ring out. The voicemail notification appeared. I didn't listen yet. I was too busy building a timeline because I'd learned something in 7 years of working in a hospital. Documentation is everything. It's the difference between he said, she said, and here's what actually happened. And what actually happened was that my parents had just handed me everything I needed to destroy them. Here's what you need to understand about my family. We looked perfect from the outside. Gerald and Diane Brennan, married 36 years. Dad worked as a foreman at a manufacturing plant until he retired last year. Mom was a secretary at our church, First Community Bible. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone and appearances matter more than truth. They raised 2 kids, me and my brother Jeffrey. Jeffrey is 5 years younger than me, and from the moment he was born, he was brilliant, gifted, going places. When I graduated nursing school at 23 and got my RN license, my parents said, "That's nice, honey." When Jeffrey dropped out of college junior year to start a tech company, they threw him a party and gave him $15,000 in seed money. That company failed within 8 months. Then he started another one. That failed too. Then a third. Each time, my parents bailed him out. "He's a visionary, Lisa," my mother told me 3 years ago at Christmas. "You just work for someone else. There's a difference." The difference, apparently, was that I paid my own bills and he didn't. Jeffrey is 29 now. He's never held a job for longer than 6 months, but he has confidence, he has charisma, and he has parents who believe that their son's potential is more important than reality. Which brings me to Grandma. Eleanor Brennan moved in with my parents 6 years ago after my grandfather died. She had money from Grandpa's life insurance and the sale of their house, about $120,000. Not a fortune, but enough for her to live comfortably in her final years. She was 72 then, healthy, independent. She moved in with Mom and Dad because they offered and because she wanted to be close to family. For the first few years, it was fine. Then things started to shift. Thanksgiving 2023, 4 months before the porch dump, I went to my parents' house for dinner. Grandma looked different, thinner. Her clothes were loose. As a nurse, I noticed these things. Weight loss in elderly patients is a red flag. I asked to check her medications. Mom got defensive immediately. "We handle it fine, Lisa. You don't need to come in here acting like we're incompetent." But I saw Grandma's room. It was next to Jeffrey's home office. The walls were thin. I could hear Jeffrey on the phone, some sales call where he was trying to sound important. He was loud, aggressive. Grandma flinched every time his voice peaked. I pulled her aside in the kitchen. "Are you okay here, Grandma?" Her eyes started to well up. Before she could answer, Mom walked in. "Lisa, stop interrogating her. She's fine." But her hands were shaking, and it wasn't just the Parkinson's. A month later, Christmas, I helped Grandma set up online banking on her phone. "So you can check your accounts anytime," I told her. I thought I was helping her stay independent. 2 weeks into January, she called me, confused. "Sweetheart, there's money going out of my account that I don't remember authorizing. Can you look?" She sent me screenshots, 6 transfers over the past 6 months, $1,200 each, all going to Jay Brennan, Jeffrey. "Grandma, did you agree to give Jeffrey money?" There was a long pause. I might have? "Your father handles my finances now. He said Jeffrey needed help with his business, but I don't remember signing anything." I asked to see the power of attorney document. I wanted to know exactly what authority my parents had over her finances. Dad shut me down. "It's handled, Lisa. Don't worry about it." That's when I started my private file on my personal laptop. Eleanor. Concerns.doc. I didn't know then that I was building a legal case. I just knew something felt wrong. And in my line of work, when something feels wrong, you trust that instinct. Because by the time you have proof, someone's usually already been hurt. The phone call came at 11:30 a.m. I'd been avoiding it for 5 hours. But Mom kept calling, and eventually I knew I had to answer. I put it on speaker so Connor could hear. Pressed record on my phone. Oregon is a one-party consent state. I only need one person's permission to record a conversation, and I was giving myself permission. Lisa. Oh, thank God, I was getting worried. Her voice was bright, cheerful, like she'd just dropped off a casserole instead of a human being. You left Grandma on my porch. Well, yes. We knew we could count on you to take care of her. I kept my voice level. You left your 78-year-old mother-in-law on my front porch in 38-degree weather, without calling me, without asking me. The brightness in her voice dimmed. We had no choice, Lisa. There's always a choice. Jeffrey is on the verge of a breakdown. Her tone shifted into victim mode. I'd heard it 1,000 times. His new startup is at a critical phase. He needs quiet. He needs space to focus. And Grandma's needs are they're too much. Do you know what it's like? Every night, her medication routine. Every morning, helping her get dressed. We're exhausted. You're exhausted, I repeated. So you abandoned her. We didn't abandon her. We brought her to you. You're a nurse. You can handle this better than we can anyway. 47 minutes. That's how long the call lasted. 47 minutes of circular logic, gaslighting, and my mother rewriting reality in real time. Did Grandma agree to this move? I asked. Pause. Too long. She's fine with whatever we decide. She knows we know what's best. That's not what I asked. Lisa, don't make this difficult. I ended the call, saved the recording, mom_call_031124.m4a, 47 minutes and 32 seconds of evidence. 3 minutes later, the text started. Mom, 11:58 a.m. You're being selfish. Family sacrifices for family. Mom, 12:03 p.m. Grandma can stay with you just a few weeks, while Jeffrey gets his office space set up. Me, 12:04 p.m. A few weeks? Mom, 12:05 p.m. Or longer. We'll see. Don't make this difficult. Me, 12:06 p.m. You didn't ask me. Mom, 12:07 p.m. We're telling you. She's your grandmother too. This is what daughters do, Lisa. Jeffrey's mental health matters. Grandma understands sacrifice. Why don't you? I screenshot every single message. Then Dad joined the thread. Dad, 12:14 p.m. Your mother is right. We raised you better than this selfishness. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Connor took my phone, read the thread, looked at me. You know what you have to do. I did. Me, 12:18 p.m. Grandma will stay here, permanently. Don't contact me about picking her up later. If you want to see her, you ask me first. We'll discuss why you thought abandonment was acceptable another time. 3 calls came in immediately. Mom, Dad. Then, for the first time in 8 months, Jeffrey. I declined all 3. Dad left a voicemail. I saved it without listening all the way through. The first 10 seconds were enough. Lisa Marie Brennan, you do not get to dictate terms. She's our mother. Call me back immediately. Immediately. A command. Like I was still a child who needed to obey. I wasn't. I opened my laptop and searched. Oregon Elder Abandonment Laws. Then, Adult Protective Services Portland. Then, How to Prove Financial Exploitation of Elderly. I had a week of vacation time saved up. I submitted the request that afternoon. My supervisor approved it within an hour. She could tell from my voice that this was serious. For the next 5 days, I was going to do what I do best: assess, document, and build a case that couldn't be denied. Day 1, March 11th, 8 p.m. I created a spreadsheet. Eleanor Brennan, health timeline. I documented everything I could observe. Current vital signs compared to the last time I'd properly assessed her. Thanksgiving. 14 weeks ago, Thanksgiving, November 23rd, 2023. Weight 129 pounds. BP 138/84, controlled. A1C 7.2, diabetes managed. Mobility, walking with cane, steady. Cognitive, sharp, oriented times 4. Current, March 11th, 2024. Weight, 118 pounds, 11-pound loss. BP, 156/92, uncontrolled. Mobility, unsteady, significant muscle weakness. Cognitive, oriented times 3, confused about time/date, 11 pounds in 14 weeks. For a 78-year-old diabetic with Parkinson's, that's not just concerning, it's dangerous. Day 2. I asked Grandma's permission to do a full physical assessment. She agreed. What I found made my blood run cold. 3 bed sores. Stage 2. 1 on her lower back, 2 on her hips. These don't develop overnight. Stage 2 pressure ulcers take weeks of immobility and inadequate repositioning to form. Muscle atrophy in both legs, significant enough that I could measure it. Her calves were 15% smaller than they should be for someone her size. Fingernails overgrown, yellowed, thick. No one had been helping her with basic hygiene. I documented everything with photographs, measurements, clinical notes. This wasn't just neglect anymore. This was medical evidence of prolonged abuse. Then I found the medication log. Stuffed in the bottom of her suitcase was a spiral notebook, my mother's handwriting, a log of Grandma's medications for the past 3 weeks, 9 entries marked skipped, refused, 9 insulin doses, supposedly refused by the patient. I showed Grandma the notebook. Did you refuse your insulin these days? She looked confused. No, I always take my medicine. I never refuse. I circled the dates, asked her to tell me what she remembered about each one. January 28th. I remember asking for it. Diane said she'd bring it after dinner. I don't think she did. February 3rd. I don't remember that day at all. February 10th. Jeffrey was having people over. I stayed in my room. I don't think anyone checked on me. Patient did not refuse medication. Patient was denied medication. Day 3, I called Grandma's primary care physician, Dr. Raymond Peterson. I'd worked with him before. We'd both staffed health fairs at the hospital. He knew me as a professional. Dr. Peterson, I'm calling about my grandmother, Eleanor Brennan. I'm her granddaughter, but I'm also an RN, and I need to report some concerns. I kept it clinical, no accusations yet, just facts. He pulled up her chart while we talked. Lisa, I haven't seen Eleanor in 4 months. Her last 3 appointments were canceled. Canceled by whom? Let me check. The calls came from, it says here, family member. Stated the patient was refusing to come to appointments. My grandmother, who had never missed a doctor's appointment in her life, was supposedly refusing care. Dr. Peterson, I'm looking at Eleanor right now. She has stage 2 pressure ulcers, significant weight loss, and evidence of medication mismanagement. I don't believe she refused those appointments. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm going to make a note in her chart. This is concerning, Lisa. I'm documenting everything. I may need your records for a formal report. You'll have them. I hung up and opened a new document on my laptop. Evidence log, Eleanor Brennan. 14 pages, 23 photographic exhibits, a 6-month timeline mapping her health decline directly to the months living with my parents, 47 pieces of evidence cataloged and cross-referenced. I saved it as Eleanor_Brennan_neglect_evidence_final.pdf. Then I opened a new browser tab and typed, Adult Protective Services Oregon, How to File a Report. March 16th, 10:30 p.m. I stared at the PDF file for a long time. This wasn't a family argument anymore. This was a legal case. Tomorrow, I was crossing a line most people don't cross. I was reporting my own parents to the state. But I'm a nurse. I took an oath. And that oath doesn't have an exception clause for family. The bank statements told a story my parents didn't want anyone to read. I sat with Grandma on March 17th, 5 days after proper medication and 3 square meals a day. Her mind was already sharper. Funny how that works when you actually dose someone correctly. Grandma, can we look at your bank account together? I need to understand where your money went. Would that be okay? She nodded immediately. Please, I want to know everything. She logged in. I started downloading statements, 18 months worth. The pattern was obvious once you knew to look for it. Jeffrey Brennan, $1,200, repeated monthly, 6 times. That was the money Grandma had mentioned, $7,200 total. But there was more. A line item every month. Home care supplies, $850. I picked up my phone, called the medical supply company listed on the statement. Hi, I'm calling about account holder Eleanor Brennan. Can you tell me what supplies were purchased in the last year? The representative checked. I'm not showing any Eleanor Brennan in our system. Can you search by the account number? I read it off the statement. That account was closed in 2019. Fake charges. $5,100 over 6 months, billed to a defunct account, somehow showing up on Grandma's statements anyway. Then I found the big one. December 15th, 2023. Withdrawal. $8,500. Memo. E. Brennan gift to Jeffrey. Business investment. I turned to Grandma, kept my voice gentle. Do you remember giving Jeffrey $8,500 in December? Her face crumpled. I remember signing something. Gerald said it was for my care. He said I was agreeing to... I don't know. He had so many papers. I pulled up images of her old checks from 2022, scanned her driver's license. Then I looked at the signature on the December 15th transfer authorization. They didn't match. Grandma's real signature was neat, connected cursive. Firm loops on the E in Eleanor. Consistent slant. The signature on the transfer form was shaky, broken. The letters didn't connect, and whoever forged it had misspelled her own last name, wrote Brenham instead of Brennan. I took photographs. 3 comparison shots, documented the discrepancy in my evidence log. Then I found something else in Grandma's suitcase. Buried under nightgowns, folded into quarters, a power of attorney document dated November 3rd, 2023. I showed it to Grandma. She stared at it. I've never seen this before in my life. Your signature is at the bottom. That's not my signature. I looked closer. She was right. Same shaky hand as the bank transfer. Same misspelling. Brenham. They'd forged a power of attorney to legally drain her accounts. This wasn't just neglect anymore. This was felony fraud. But I needed to know where the money went. Grandma, can I check your email? I want to see if there are any other accounts we don't know about. She nodded, handed me her phone. Please, I want to know everything. I searched her inbox for account notifications. Found one dated November 8th, 2023. Welcome to Venmo. Grandma, do you know what Venmo is? No, I've never heard of it. Someone had set up a Venmo account using her email address. I used password reset to access it. Here's how the scam worked. They created the Venmo account in her name, then linked it to her bank account. Money would leave her bank account, go into the Venmo account that appeared to be hers. Then Jeffrey would transfer it out to himself. On paper, it looked like Grandma was voluntarily sending money to Jeffrey via Venmo. But she didn't even know what Venmo was. Transaction history loaded, November through February. 6 transfers of $1,200 each to jbrennan_CEO. Then, like clockwork, Jeffrey would immediately transfer it out. $600 to DraftKings, gambling. $400 to Coinbase Wallet, cryptocurrency. $200 to rent payment _Gerald Diane. He was taking Grandma's money and using $600 of it every month to pay my parents' rent. They weren't just enabling him, they were getting a cut. I clicked on Jeffrey's Venmo profile. Bio: entrepreneur, crypto investor, future Forbes 30 under 30. His last post was from March 10th. One day before the porch dump, a photo of new sneakers. Caption: treat yourself. The price tag was visible in the reflection of the mirror, $385. He spent $385 on shoes while my grandmother was being underfed and undermedicated. I saved everything: screenshots, PDFs, transaction logs. Then I did the math. Grandma had $120,000 when she moved in with my parents in 2018, 6 years ago. Now she had $38,000 left, $82,000 gone. Some of that was legitimate: her actual medications, co-pays, real living expenses over 6 years. But I could prove that at least $22,500 was fraud. Jeffrey's Venmo transfers, $7,200. The forged December gift, $8,500. Fake home care supply charges, $5,100. Other suspicious withdrawals I'd flagged, $1,700. And that was just what I could document from 18 months of bank statements. Who knows what happened in the 4.5 years before I started paying attention? I went back to the family text thread, the one I'd been added to 4 months ago when Mom decided to use group chat for family coordination. I scrolled back, found gems I'd overlooked at the time because I didn't know what I was looking at. Mom, November 18th, 2023. Eleanor is becoming dead weight. Jeffrey needs her room for his new venture. Dad, December 2nd, 2023. We've done our time caring for her. It's Lisa's turn eventually anyway. Jeffrey, January 25th, 2024. Can you tell Grandma to be quieter in the mornings? I have investor calls at 9. Mom, February 14th, 2024. Maybe we should look into nursing homes. Oh wait, Eleanor's money is depleted. Never mind. Dad, March 10th, 2024, 11:52 p.m. Tomorrow morning, early, before Lisa wakes up. 23 incriminating texts, saved, backed up, cross-referenced with bank transactions and medical timeline. Receipt after receipt after receipt, stacking up like bricks in a wall they'd built themselves. My phone buzzed. Mom, it's been a week, Lisa. We'd like to visit Grandma this Sunday. 2 p.m. See you then. Not a question. A demand. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened one more browser tab. Adult Protective Services Oregon. Report elder abuse. It was time to make it official. March 18th, 9:15 a.m. I dialed the number, 1-855-5037-233. A woman answered, Adult Protective Services intake line, how can I help you? I need to report elder abuse and financial exploitation. Are you the alleged victim? No, I'm the granddaughter, but I'm also a registered nurse, which makes me a mandatory reporter. Her tone shifted. Professional, focused. I'm going to need to gather some information. This call may take 30 to 40 minutes. I have time. I provided everything: timeline, medical evidence, financial evidence, photographic documentation, names, dates, amounts, locations, 38 minutes and 14 seconds. At the end, she said, Ms. Brennan, based on what you've described, this case will be prioritized as high risk. You should expect contact from an investigator within 72 hours. What happens then? An investigator will interview the alleged victim and examine the evidence you've provided. If the allegations are substantiated, we'll coordinate with law enforcement and potentially the district attorney's office. This could become a criminal case? Yes. What you've described, particularly the financial exploitation and forged documents, may constitute criminal elder abuse under Oregon Revised Statutes 124.100. She gave me a case number, 2024-OR-8831. One more thing, Ms. Brennan. Do not alert the alleged perpetrators that a report has been filed. It could compromise the investigation. Understood. I hung up, wrote down the case number, filed it in my evidence folder. Then I sat very still for a minute, because I'd just done something irreversible. I'd reported my own parents to the state, and part of me, the part that was raised to believe family loyalty mattered more than anything, felt like I'd betrayed them. But the nurse in me, the part that had seen what happens when abuse goes unreported, knew I'd done exactly what I was trained to do. Protect the patient, even when the patient is family, even when the abusers are family too. 68 hours later, there was a knock on my door. March 20th, 10 a.m. The woman on my porch was in her mid-40s, business casual, with a badge clipped to her belt. Lisa Brennan? I'm Janet Kowalski, Adult Protective Services. I let her in, introduced her to Grandma, who was sitting in the living room doing a crossword puzzle. Connor had taken the day off work to be present as a witness. Janet spent 90 minutes interviewing Grandma. I stayed in the room as emotional support, but I didn't speak unless asked. Eleanor, can you tell me about the morning of March 11th? Grandma's voice was quiet. I woke up around 5. Diane, that's my daughter-in-law. She came into my room, said, "Get dressed, we're going to Lisa's." I thought we were going for a visit, for the day. Did you know you were moving out? No. I didn't know until we got there and Gerald left my suitcases. Then they drove away, and I realized they weren't coming back. How did that make you feel? Grandma's eyes filled. Like I was trash they were throwing out. She cried 4 times during the interview. Each time Janet waited patiently, handed her tissues, and gently asked if she needed a break. Did you ever give Jeffrey Brennan permission to access your bank accounts? I don't. I remember Gerald saying Jeffrey needed help, but I don't remember saying yes. I remember signing things Gerald put in front of me. He said they were for my medical care. Did you understand what you were signing? No. Janet photographed the bed sores that were now healing, took Grandma's vitals again, made notes in her tablet. Before she left, she pulled out the power of attorney document from my evidence packet. She examined it under a magnifying glass, studied the signature, looked at me. This is fraudulent. I'm going to need our forensic document analyst to examine this. Ms. Brennan, this investigation has just escalated to potential felony level. 2 days later, another visitor. Dr. Helen Chu, geriatric specialist, 30 years in elder care, expert witness in 65 elder abuse cases. She conducted a full medical assessment of Grandma, 4 hours of examination, cognitive testing, reviewing medical records. Her report was 14 pages long. I got a copy. Key excerpts. Patient exhibits clear signs of prolonged neglect. The bed sores are consistent with 6 to 8 weeks of immobility and inadequate repositioning. This meets the clinical definition of criminal neglect. Medication mismanagement appears deliberate. The pattern of underdosing, combined with documented weight loss and missed medical appointments, suggests systematic deprivation of care to reduce costs. Cognitive assessment shows patient is competent. Score, 28 out of 30. Patient has capacity to make her own decisions. Any documents signed without full explanation or under coercion are voidable. In my professional opinion, Eleanor Brennan was being systematically abused by family members to fund other financial priorities while maintaining minimal care standards. This is one of the more clear-cut cases of coordinated elder abuse I have evaluated. March 25th, I received a certified letter. Adult Protective Services, case number 2, 024-OR-8831. Findings: substantiated. 3 allegations investigated. 3 substantiated. Neglect, substantiated. Financial exploitation, substantiated. Abandonment, substantiated. Recommended actions: 1. Referral to Multnomah County District Attorney, Elder Abuse Unit 2. Emergency Protective Order 3. Support for Guardianship Petition. Lisa Brennan, Petitioner. The letter was 5 pages. Official, unambiguous. My parents had been formally found guilty of elder abuse by the state of Oregon. That evening at 6:45 p.m., my doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Mom and Dad. On my porch, Dad was holding a folder. They'd come to talk about Grandma's will. I didn't open the door right away. I set my phone to record audio. Oregon's one-party consent law meant I could legally record any conversation I was part of. Then I let them in. Connor stood behind me. Silent. Witness. Dad didn't waste time. We need to discuss Eleanor's estate planning. No, we don't. Mom's face was red and tear-streaked. She'd been crying on the drive over. Lisa, please. We need to be reasonable here. Reasonable? I kept my voice flat. You abandoned her on my porch. I'm not sure you know what that word means. Dad opened his folder. Legal paperwork. We've consulted an attorney. Eleanor needs to update her will. Given Jeffrey's business needs and our years of care, Grandma's estate is no longer your concern. Mom's face went pale. Excuse me? Adult Protective Services investigated. All 3 allegations were substantiated. You're both named as perpetrators of elder abuse. The room went silent. Then Dad exploded. You reported us to the government? I reported elder abuse. The government agreed with me. This is insane! Mom's voice pitched higher. We gave her a home! You gave her bed sores and stole her money. We didn't steal anything. Those were gifts. She agreed. I pulled out my phone, read from my notes. Eleanor Brennan has Parkinson's disease and diabetes. You under-medicated her to save $40 a month. You falsified medication logs. You forged her signature on financial documents. Misspelled her name while doing it, by the way. Her consent wasn't just coerced. It was fabricated. Dad's face turned red. You have no idea what you're talking about. I'm a registered nurse. Medical documentation is literally my job. Mom started crying again, full-body sobs. This will destroy us, Lisa. Our reputation at church, Gerald's retirement position at the school district. Jeffrey's already struggling. If this gets out, his whole future. You should have thought about that before you turned your mother into a line item on a budget. We were desperate, Mom's voice cracked. Jeffrey's creditors were calling. He owed people money, dangerous people. We were trying to protect him. So you sacrificed Grandma to do it. 23 minutes. That's how long they stayed. 23 minutes of them cycling through denial, anger, bargaining, playing victim. At no point did either of them apologize. At no point did they ask how Grandma was doing. Connor finally spoke. You need to leave. Dad pointed at me. This isn't over. You're right. It's not. You're both receiving a cease and desist letter from my attorney. Stay away from Grandma. Stay away from my house. Mom wailed. Actually wailed. Please, Lisa. Please, your father could lose his job. I could lose my position at church. Everyone will know. Good, I said. They should know who you really are. I closed the door, locked it. Mom cried on my porch for 22 minutes straight. I know because the doorbell camera time-stamped every minute. Eventually, Dad dragged her back to the car. That night, I wrote in my journal. It's something I'd started doing to process everything. Later, I'd read this entry in court. They thought Grandma was a burden to dump. They thought I'd be too weak, too nice, too conditioned by years of family comes first to fight back. They forgot I'm a nurse. I deal with life and death every day. I deal with people who lie about symptoms, who hide abuse, who put appearances over reality. I'm trained to see through bullshit and document what's real. They made Grandma a transaction. I made her a priority. They made calculations. I made records. They thought family meant silence. I learned family means protection, even when it's protecting someone from their own family. 3 days later, my attorney called with news. Attorney Olivia Bradford came recommended by APS. 15 years in elder law. She'd seen everything. She reviewed my evidence on March 28th. Took her 40 minutes. When she looked up, she was smiling. Lisa, you've done my job for me. This is airtight. We discussed strategy. 4 legal actions. 1. Emergency guardianship. Lisa as legal guardian, removing parents' authority. 2. Revocation of fraudulent POA. Invalidating the forged document. 3. Cease and desist order. No contact with Eleanor. 4. Civil recovery suit. Reclaiming stolen funds. What about criminal charges? I asked. That's up to the DA. But with your documentation and APS substantiation, I'd be shocked if they didn't prosecute. How long will this take? Guardianship hearing can be scheduled within 2 weeks. The rest, she shrugged, could be months, could be years. But you're in control now. They're not. April 1st, a process server delivered the cease and desist letter to my parents' home at 10 a.m. The letter was 5 pages, legal language, clear directives. Immediate cessation of all contact with Eleanor Brennan. Demand for full accounting of financial transactions. Notice of pending guardianship petition. Notice of potential criminal charges. 15-day deadline to respond. April 15th. At 2:37 p.m., 4.5 hours after service, my parents showed up at my house, violating the letter within the same day it was delivered. I watched them on the doorbell camera. Didn't open the door. Mom was sobbing on the porch. Dad was yelling at the door. Lisa! Lisa! We need to talk. This is family. I cracked the door. Chain lock engaged. You need to leave. You're violating the cease and desist. We don't care about the damn letter. Dad's face was purple. You can't do this to us. I didn't do anything to you. I protected Grandma. We're her family. You lost that right when you dosed her with half her medications to save money. Dad pulled out his checkbook. Actually pulled it out. Pen in hand. Fine. What do you want? We'll pay back whatever you think we owe. This isn't about money. Everything's about money, Lisa. We can write a check right now. You left her on my porch in 38-degree weather. You forged legal documents. You lied to doctors. A check doesn't fix that. Mom grabbed onto the doorframe. We were desperate. Jeffrey's life was in danger. Those creditors. Jeffrey is a 29-year-old gambling addict. Grandma is a 78-year-old diabetic who you systematically neglected. Those things are not equivalent. Connor stepped forward. She lost 11 pounds under your care. That's not desperation. That's killing someone slowly. Dad's voice dropped, threatening. Lisa, if you don't drop this, you'll regret it. Our lawyer says, your lawyer should be telling you to stop showing up at my house. I closed the door, locked it. Mom screamed. Actually screamed, then collapsed into sobs. I recorded the entire interaction. 15 minutes of my parents violating a legal order, offering bribes, making threats. They stayed on my porch for 22 more minutes, Mom crying, Dad pacing. Finally, he dragged her back to the car. That was the last time I saw them in person for over a year. But Jeffrey had one more call to make. March 25th, 7:20 p.m. My phone rang. Jeffrey. First time he'd called me in 9 months. I answered. Put it on speaker for Connor to hear. Hit record. You ruined everything. Not hello, not how are you, just screaming. Jeffrey, I was about to close an investor. I had someone ready to put real money into my company. Now my parents are freaking out. The cops are asking questions and it's your fault. I waited for him to finish. Are you done? You're so fucking self-righteous. Grandma was fine. She had free housing, free food. She had bed sores and underdosed medication. Those were accidents. For 6 weeks straight, that's not accidents, Jeffrey. That's neglect. You always thought you were better than me. No, I just thought I should take care of people instead of using them. When Grandma dies and you get nothing from her will, don't come crying to me. The line went dead. I saved the recording. Jeffrey_threat_032524. M4, 11 minutes and 38 seconds of him admitting there was an investor, motive for needing Grandma's money, blaming everyone but himself, and threatening me about inheritance. 3 days later, Olivia called. Lisa, I found something. Eleanor's will from 2017. That's the last legally valid version. It was never updated. And? You're the primary beneficiary. 80% of the estate goes to you. I sat down. What? Jeffrey gets 20%. You get the rest. There's even a reasoning clause. I leave the majority to my granddaughter Lisa, who has shown consistent care and devotion. She will use these resources wisely and with kindness. My parents knew about this? Oh, they knew. I found emails between your father and 3 different estate attorneys over the past 2 years. He was trying to find someone who would help him get Eleanor to change it. That's why they set up the fraudulent power of attorney. Exactly. They couldn't get her to change the will, so they decided to drain the accounts before she died. They were stealing an inheritance that was never theirs to begin with. I felt sick. Olivia, I don't want the money. What? I didn't do this for money. I did it to protect her. Lisa, I want to set up a trust for Grandma's care. And when she's gone, whatever's left goes to charity. Silence on the other end. Then, you're serious. Completely. That's extraordinary. Most families would fight over this. I'm not most families. April 10th, with Grandma's full consent and understanding, we created the Eleanor Brennan Irrevocable Elder Care Trust. All $38,000 of her remaining assets placed in trust. Lisa as trustee, not beneficiary. Funds used exclusively for Grandma's medical care, housing, and quality of life. Upon her death, anything left would be donated to the Oregon Elder Abuse Prevention Coalition. Gerald, Diane, and Jeffrey Brennan were explicitly barred from making any claim against the trust, now or in the future. The court approved it. Case number CV-2024-09183. Olivia also filed for a permanent restraining order. Hearing set for April 25th. Multnomah County Courthouse. April 25th, 9 a.m. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. 18 years on the bench. Family court specialist. My parents were required to attend. Jeffrey, too. They sat on one side of the courtroom. I sat on the other with Grandma, her choice to attend, and Connor. Judge Morrison reviewed the case file for 7 minutes in silence. Then she looked up. I've read the APS report, Dr. Chu's medical assessment, the financial evidence, the recordings. She looked at my parents. I've also read your response brief. Would you like to add anything before I rule? Dad's attorney stood. Your Honor, my clients acknowledge there were miscommunications regarding Eleanor's care. However, they maintain they acted in what they believe to be her best interests. Miscommunications, Judge Morrison repeated. The word hung in the air like something rotten. She looked at my father. Mr. Brennan, you have a registered nurse for a daughter. Did you at any point consult with her about your mother's medical care? We handled it ourselves. You handled it by underdosing a diabetic to save $40 per month. You handled it by allowing bed sores to develop over 6 to 8 weeks. You handled it by forging her signature on financial documents. Dad said nothing. Judge Morrison turned to my mother. Mrs. Brennan, you work at a church. Do you understand what the term bearing false witness means? Mom's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. You falsified medication logs, claiming Eleanor refused care when, in fact, you denied her care. That's bearing false witness, in case you needed a theological framing for your legal fraud. Then the judge turned to Jeffrey. Mr. Brennan, what do you do for a living? I'm an entrepreneur, Your Honor. What does your company do? Pause. Too long. We're in development phase. So you don't currently generate revenue? Not yet, but yet you spent $385 on sneakers one day before your grandmother was abandoned on your sister's porch. Money that came from your grandmother's accounts. Does that seem to you like entrepreneurial discipline? Jeffrey's face went red. He said nothing. Judge Morrison looked down at her notes. When she spoke again, her voice was cold steel. I have presided over family court for 18 years. I have seen neglect. I have seen exploitation. I have seen families tear themselves apart over money. This case represents something worse. This is calculated cruelty masked as family duty. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, you did not simply neglect your mother. You systematically exploited her for financial gain while outsourcing the burden of her care. You under-medicated a diabetic to reduce costs. You falsified medical records. You forged legal documents. You abandoned an elderly woman in near-freezing temperatures rather than have an adult conversation about resources. Jeffrey Brennan, you enriched yourself through your grandmother's diminished capacity while contributing nothing to her care. And Lisa Brennan, she looked at me. You did what they should have done. You protected someone who couldn't protect herself. You documented abuse with professional precision. And you established a trust that prioritizes your grandmother's welfare over personal gain. You are a credit to your profession and a model for what family responsibility should look like. I felt Connor take my hand. My ruling is as follows. Permanent restraining order granted. Gerald Brennan, Diane Brennan, and Jeffrey Brennan are barred from contact with Eleanor Brennan. Minimum distance, 500 feet at all times. Full guardianship granted to Lisa Brennan. Gerald, Diane, and Jeffrey Brennan are permanently barred from making any claim against Eleanor Brennan's estate, current or future. This case is referred to the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution consideration. We are adjourned. The gavel came down. Mom sobbed loudly. Dad sat stone-faced. Jeffrey stared at me with pure hatred. As we walked out, he hissed under his breath, "You'll regret this." I didn't respond. I held Grandma's hand and walked past him like he didn't exist. Because to me, he didn't. Not anymore. 30 days later, I got a phone call from someone who used to volunteer with my mother at church. She was whispering, "Lisa, I thought you should know. Your parents resigned from all their positions. People found out about everything. The pastor asked them to step back." A week after that, my father retired early from his part-time position at the school district, officially voluntary retirement. But I heard through my cousin that there had been questions, an investigation. Parents don't like finding out that the custodian was investigated for elder abuse. June 3, 2024. Jeffrey's bankruptcy filing appeared in public records. Total debts, $67,000. Total assets, $1,200. He'd lost everything. And this time, Mom and Dad couldn't bail him out. They'd spent their savings fighting the APS case. Dad's early retirement meant penalties on his pension. They had to move out of their house and into a smaller rental across town. Not my problem. Grandma, meanwhile, was thriving. 79 years old. Weight back up to a healthy 126 pounds. A 1C level at 6.8. Diabetes controlled. Physical therapy 3 times a week. Parkinson's tremor stable with proper medication. She started taking a watercolor painting class at the senior center. Made 4 new friends. Sold a painting at a local art fair for $85 and was absolutely thrilled. Every Thursday we have family game nights. Grandma, Connor, and me. Sometimes our neighbor joins. Grandma laughs now. makes jokes, lives without apology. The scared, confused woman from the porch is gone. 1 year and 14 months passed. March 11th, 2025. 1 year anniversary of the dump. 5:30 in the morning, my doorbell camera sent an alert. My heart stopped. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the camera. A car in the driveway. My mother getting out alone, carrying something. She walked slowly to the porch, set down a greeting card, looked up at the camera. She knew I was watching. Mouthed 2 words, "I'm sorry," then got back in the car and left. I waited an hour, went outside, picked up the card, Hallmark sympathy style, card number 1847, Mom's handwriting inside. "Lisa, it's been a year. We've lost everything. Our reputation, our church family. Jeffrey had to file bankruptcy. Gerald had to retire early. We know we can't undo what we did. We're asking, can we see Mom? Just once? We miss her. Please. Diane." I brought the card inside, showed Grandma. She read it. Long silence. "What do you think I should do, sweetheart?" I sat next to her. "What do you want to do?" She looked at the card again. "They miss me now. When I had money, when I was useful, they wanted me gone. Now that I'm thriving without them, they want back in." She handed the card back to me. "What does that tell you about why they're really here?" I called Olivia. "Is there any legal reason my parents would suddenly want contact with Grandma?" She did some digging. Turns out Jeffrey's creditors had finally gone after the co-signers on his loans, Gerald and Diane. They were facing a $34,000 judgment. Their retirement savings, already depleted from legal fees, couldn't cover it. My cousin texted me a week later. "Hey, weird question. Your mom called my mom asking if Grandma has come into any money lately, or if Lisa's hiding assets. Thought you should know they're fishing." They weren't asking to see Grandma because they missed her. They were asking because they were broke and hoping she'd bail them out. I told Grandma everything. Her face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. "I want to write them a letter," she said. "Will you help me?" April 15th, 2025. Grandma dictated. I typed, "Gerald and Diane, I received your card. You say you've lost everything. Let me tell you what I lost when I lived with you. I lost 11 pounds because meals were irregular and insufficient. I lost my mobility because physical therapy was too expensive. I lost my dignity when you calculated my worth like a utility bill. I lost my safety when you left me on a porch in freezing weather because your son needed his room. You've lost your reputation. I almost lost my life. The difference is this: you can rebuild a reputation by changing your behavior. I cannot rebuild the year of my life you stole through systematic neglect. Lisa gave me something you never did. She gave me a choice. She asked what I wanted. You only told me what I'd cost. I don't forgive you. Forgiveness is for mistakes. What you did was calculated. The restraining order stands. Do not contact me again. Eleanor, we sent it certified mail. Tracking number 9405-8103-6624-0185-9921. They received it April 18th. That evening, blocked number called my phone. I didn't answer. Voicemail from Mom, sobbing. "You turned her against us. You poisoned her mind. We'll never forgive you for this." I deleted it without finishing, blocked the number. That chapter was closed. March 11th, 2026, 2-year anniversary. Jeffrey works at a Target distribution center now, $16.50 an hour. His social media is deleted. Last I heard, he's dating someone new, hasn't told her about his past. Gerald and Diane live in a small rental, $1,200 a month. Gerald does part-time custodial work at a different school district. Diane volunteers nowhere. No organization will have her once they Google her name. They send a Christmas card every year. I return it unopened. Eleanor turned 79 last month. 14 people came to her party at the senior center. She's taking an advanced watercolor class now. Loves murder mystery podcasts, specifically one called Criminal. Rates Connor's dad jokes a 3 out of 10. Lovingly. Connor and I built a wheelchair-accessible garden in our backyard. Grandma tends it every morning when the weather's nice. She lives with us permanently. First floor bedroom, 12 by 14 feet, window facing the garden. This morning at 5:36 a.m., the exact time 2 years ago, I checked my doorbell camera. The porch was empty. No suitcases. No shivering elderly woman left like trash. At 8 a.m., the doorbell rang. Mail carrier with a package. Grandma's art supply order. New brushes. Alizarin Crimson, set of 6. Her favorite. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. Reporting my parents. Tearing the family apart. Here's what I tell them. They tore the family apart when they chose Jeffrey's comfort over Grandma's safety. When they chose money over her health. When they chose their reputation over doing what was right. I didn't tear anything apart. I just refused to help them hide it. Grandma was never a burden. She's a 79-year-old woman who likes watercolors and podcasts and terrible jokes. She's a person. The burden was their cruelty. And I'm not carrying that anymore. Some burdens teach you what matters. Some people never learn, but the ones who do, they get to watch the people they protected bloom.